If you are a typical iPad user, you will spend a lot of your time with the device reading, creating and sending email. In order to do that, you need to set up an email account on your iPad. In this video, we will learn how to do that. From the home screen, tap the Settings icon. Now tap the Mail, Contacts, Calendar entry in the Settings screen. And in the Account section, tap Add Account. Note that you are not creating a new account on your iPad with a particular service, but rather you're entering information for an account that you've previously created. For example, a Gmail account, Hotmail, Windows Live, or your internet service provider's account. For example, BigPond or Optus. In the Add Account area, you'll find that you have a number of options, including Microsoft Exchange, iCloud, Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, AOL, and other. The one you choose depends on the kind of email account you have. If you have an iCloud, Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail, or AOL account, setting up that account is very easy. Just tap the appropriate entry, and in the sheet that appears, enter your name, email address, password for that email account, and a description. For example, I have created a Gmail account with the address that is u3aipad@gmail.com. So I tap Gmail, enter my name in the name field, enter my email address, enter a password and a description, and tap Next. The iPad will then set about verifying my address, and once it does that, it moves to a pane where I can see options for setting mail, calendars and notes. We'll leave mail on and the others off and tap Save. MobileMe, Yahoo, Mail, Hotmail, iCloud and AOL all work the same way. You'll see that my Gmail account is now listed under the Accounts heading. If I tap that entry, I see the basics of my account in the window that appears. If I then tap the account entry, I see more advanced options, including SMTP, which is the outgoing mail server. When I tap SMTP, I can see information about the primary server as well as any other SMTP servers that I've configured for other accounts. If I go back and then tap Advanced, I see more settings for things like SSL, authentication, IMAP path prefix, and the server port. Most of these are something you don't need to worry about. Let's leave here and go back to the home screen and launch the Mail app. Sure enough, the Gmail account I set up is in the list of accounts. All I have to do now is tap it, and the messages appear in my inbox. If I want to see all the messages for all my accounts, I can return to the Mailboxes pane and I tap All Inboxes. And here all inbound messages appear, regardless of which account they were sent to. This unified inbox, as it's called, makes it easier to read all your mail. Let's go back to Settings and see how to configure other accounts. Again, tap Mail, Contacts, Calendars if it's not already selected, and then tap Add Account. Now tap the Other entry. In the pane that appears, tap Add Mail Account. It's in this area that you configure an account that doesn't fit one of the entries we've already seen. Your email account at work, for example, or your internet provider such as BigPond or Optus. In the sheet that appears, you start just as you have before, with your name, email address, password and description, and when I've filled everything in, I tap Next. Because the iPad can't automatically configure that account, as could be the case with your work email account, it has to ask for more information. It starts by doing so by displaying the IMAP and POP tabs. You don't need to understand what IMAP and POP email accounts are. The gist is that IMAP accounts store email on an internet server that's accessible from any computer, and POP accounts store email on your computer after you've downloaded it from the server. And you can also download mail from the server using multiple devices. It's at this point where you may need to locate your email settings from your service provider. For example, if you have a Telstra BigPond account, to get the email settings from Telstra, Google BigPond email settings. Naturally, you'll need to know your account name and your password. Seek assistance from your provider if required before continuing with this configuration. Regardless of the kind of account you have, you'll need to know the host name of the incoming and outgoing mail servers. This is often something like mail.example.com for the incoming mail server and smtp.example.com for the outgoing mail server. But sometimes it can be more complicated. Here's an example from Telstra's BigPond for those users who use webmail. And this was found on their website, and all you would do is substitute your details in the appropriate fields. So in this case, we're going to set up a POP account. So I tap POP, and then I need to enter information for the host name. And again, I need my username. I also need the name of my outgoing mail server, and in this case, it's the same as the incoming mail server. So I will tap and hold on it, select all, copy, tap in the host name, paste, and I should be set to go. To find out for sure, I now tap Save. Once again, the iPad verifies the account, and once it's verified, you switch back to the Mail Contacts Calendars area, and you'll see that your email account has been added. Now suppose that your account requires some special settings, an out of the ordinary server port, for example, and that's no problem. If you have a POP account, just tap your account and tap Advanced. In the area that appears, you can make choices about the incoming mail server, determine if and when deleted mail is completely removed from your account. You can switch SSL, which is a security setting, on or off. Change the way your account is authenticated, and determine if and when email is removed from the server. And you can also choose a server port. In this case, we're going to leave the settings as delete from server, never. And what this means is that I can use multiple computers or iOS devices, and I can check for my email on any one of those devices. And that mail will seem new to that device, and then it will download it. If instead I were to check when removed from inbox or 7 days, when one of those events occurs, the email will be deleted from the server and it will only exist on my computer. So if I go to a different computer somewhere else and download my mail, that particular message will not be on the server, it'll only be on the computer that I downloaded it on. That's the difference between IMAP and POP. So they're the options for the POP account. If you need to configure the SMTP server settings, return to the account information sheet and tap SMTP. Under the primary server setting, tap the outgoing mail server. In this sheet, you can make changes that you like. For example, you can change the server port. We don't want to do that, so let's go back. Let's return to the SMTP sheet because there's something good here. If you have more than one email account, you'll see all your account's SMTP servers listed in the Other SMTP Servers area. If you can't send email from your primary SMTP server, it's a good idea to tap on those other servers and turn them on. So for example, let's turn on our Gmail server and then tap Done. This instructs the iPad to use those outgoing mail servers if the primary server fails. And that failure can happen if you're trying to send email from an internet cafe or hotel. And if that cafe or hotel blocks certain outgoing mail ports, you'll have an alternative server to use. Note that when possible, it's best to use the primary server. But if you can't, this is worth a try. One more thing we need to do to set up the mail. Make sure you're in Settings and in the Mail Contacts Calendars tab. And if we scroll down past all the accounts that you have added, there are some other things that you need to think about when you're setting up your mail. Show recent messages. Now, if you tap into that, you can have the Mail app show the 50 recent message up to 1,000 recent messages. And you just need to decide which one you're going to do. For the preview, when you look at the mail in the app screen, you'll only see a couple of lines. I've set mine to 2 lines, and if I go back into the Mail app and have a look at a mail message, they're all 2 lines. You can see the name of the subject of the iPad, then the first 2 lines of the message, because that's how I've set it up. If I wanted to change that, I'd be going back into Mail Contacts Calendars, Preview, and let's change it to 5 lines, then back to Home, back into Mail, back into one of your mail accounts, and you can see more of the mail message. So you can decide on the left there whether it's worth opening it completely or not, but no, realistically you only need 2 lines, because as soon as you tap one, you can see what the message is about, because it's in the reading pane. So if you have 2 lines preview, you can get more messages in without having to scroll up. So we'll go back to the settings, Mail Contacts Calendar, changing that to 2. Minimum font size, so if the fonts are a little too small for you, you can change the fonts to different size. I'll use medium. The Show to CC label, I have that off because I don't need to know who else I've addressed it to. I don't ask before deleting, I have those 2 off. Load remote images, I'd like to have the images that accompany the message be loaded with the email. If you have that off, then if there is an email that's come in that has an attached image, it won't load with it and it'll ask you, do you want to download it? Organised by thread. If you're having an email conversation with somebody and someone sent you an email, you've replied to that email, then they reply back to you, then you reply back to them, then that is a thread. You're having a 2-way conversation. If you want those messages to be organised by thread, then turn this on. And we'll look at what that looks like in the Mail app. So in this email account, you can see there's a number 2 in the top message, and for that class there are 2 messages in that thread. If I open that one, they're the 2 messages that have been going back and forward between the people for that particular subject. So somebody sent me an email, I've replied to them, they've sent one back, I've replied. Now there's 2 messages in that thread. If we go back to settings and turn that off, and then go back to Mail and have a look, you can see now that those 2 messages are now separated. And once you start to get a lot of messages, then the replies will not be side by side as they are in this one. They could be separated by other emails and difficult to find. So having it on means that when you correspond with somebody over a topic, that all those emails are grouped together. Back to the settings. A few more down the bottom there. Always blind carbon copy myself. So if you turn that on, then every time you send a message, it's going to send one back to you, the same message back to you. I don't really use that because I can look at it in sent mail. Increase quote level, something to do with how, when you're typing it, how you set out the message. I've never really played with that, so indentation in a message. You can have a little play with it and see what it looks like. The signature, when you send an email, at the bottom of the email, you can have in that little box what you want to say at the bottom of the email. So it could be regards, Michelle, or please contact me at, and here are my fax numbers and phone numbers. You can have all that in so that at the end of the email, you don't have to keep signing off. All the information you want to be there will be there. And you can change it in that. So if I change this to another message, and no mobile phone, and then I can put some numbers in for mobile phone message, and that's what I want my signature to be. Then go back and back into mail, start a new message, and you can see at the bottom there now that my signature will always be there. I can type my message, whatever I want it to be, and I don't have to sign off. It's already there. Time saving. Delete that draft. Back to settings, mail, contacts, calendars. The default account, if you have more than one mail account, and you might have an iCloud account, a Gmail account, a Big Pond account, a Hotmail account, then the default account is the account that the mail app will send its messages from. It'll be those servers that it will send the message from. So whichever is your primary mail account, your preferred mail account, is what you would put there. And I've got many, and I was always wondering why whenever I sent an email, it didn't, and I was using Gmail, the mail didn't actually come from Gmail. It was coming from iCloud because I hadn't set that default account. The last one is fetch new data, and you can set that to push or fetch. Now, push, if you have it turned on, means that new data will be sent to your iPad, pushed to your iPad. As soon as a mail message is received, it'll immediately go down, be pushed down to your mail app. And if you have notifications turned on, you'll notice every time you get a new message, it appears at the top of the iPad screen. That's push. Fetch is if you want to get that mail yourself, and you might be wanting to save your battery life, in which case you don't want mail to be pushed to you constantly every time you get it. You might want to go and get the mail yourself, or you can, if you did that, you'd say manually, so no mail will be pushed to your mail app until you actually go and get the mail yourself. Or you can set it to download every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or hourly. I leave it to push because I just like it to happen automatically. But on the screen now will be some differences between fetch and push. In the advanced, you can allocate different settings for different accounts. So some of them I've got fetch, some of them I've got push, depending on how frequently the mail comes into that account. The rest of the settings are for the contacts and calendars, which we won't look at now. But these are all the settings for the mail. So have a good look at them, play with them, and think about how you want your mail to work before you finally use it. In the next video, we'll look at actually how do you manage the mail, how do you deal with spam, how do you organize your mail. So that's all for now.